I'm trying to go live, but Instagram is not agreeing with me. There we go. Okay. Duh. Checking connection. You're now live on Instagram. All right. So I realized, you know, like I said in my last live, that my plant light is now moved, but I was like, oh yeah, I have another lamp. It's kind of like, it's kind of on its last leg, but, you know, we'll just get every little bit out of it we can until I get the money or the time to go thrift some fantastic new used lamp. So yeah, I think this is a little better lighting than we had before. One of my friends was telling, or kind of asking me to remind me when the last time I did a live was, and I was like, it's been a minute, like a week and a half or so, like right after my kids started school. So it's been busy, but I told you guys, everyone, that I was going to be spending a couple weekends with my partner. So it's challenging sometimes dating someone when you live hours away from each other. Thankfully, it's not terribly far, but it's not super close either. So, as I was saying to one of my friends last weekend, when I ended up going to see my partner where he lives, that you just kind of you accept that if you get involved with someone and you know that they live more than an hour away, like, you're accepting the fact that there's going to be some driving and you're going to be paying for some gas, but yeah, it's got to be worth it for the right person. So yeah, what's going on? I'm just going to talk about a few random things while I'm waiting to see if anybody gets on. As I sit here and look at myself in my lamp, I'm not too thrilled to realize that I have a polymorphous light eruption reaction. I don't know if you guys can kind of see this. It's not fun. And the crazy thing is, like, I don't go outside uncovered usually, even my hands. That's why I wear gloves to places, and people think that, I think they think that I'm pretentious or weird or something, but it's like, I probably, you know what? Did I wear gloves the other day? I may have, like, taken my trash outside and have my hands uncovered. Like, this is crazy. Like, I joke that I'm a vampire, but, like, I'll talk about that in another video where I talk about health and my health journey, but, you know, I was tested for porphyria. I was tested for hemochromatosis. They don't know. They don't know why my skin's like this. It's super fun. But, you know, you just you get what you get. So, before I get into the topic that I was planning to talk about, which is boundaries and saying no. Hey, how's it going? Got people coming on? So before I get into my topic that I wanted to talk about, boundaries and saying no, I'm going to share a couple of new exciting products I've come across in the last few weeks. As I've said before, I'm not compensated by any company. Sometimes I get samples through my job, but they're like just because of my job. It's not directly for me. I just get lucky and get to try them sometimes. I used to work in category management for all different package departments before I had my daughter, so I got to try a lot of stuff then too, and that covered like wellness, body care. We did sell beer, and I was responsible for that department, but I don't drink beer, so I didn't really try anything. We didn't really take samples home then either. Some other departments I worked with: frozen, refrigerated, dairy, bulk. So I've, in my days, gotten to try lots of things. It's fun. Even with my job, there's a big conference that we all would go to where we literally, like, the whole conference was just trying new products. So I get excited about new products, especially being vegan and being gluten-free for 20 years. People are like, I think people just don't know what I eat. Like, when I've talked to my kid's pediatrician about it, she's like, oh, you guys are on a really restrictive diet. I'm like, my kid eats better than most people's kids. My child loves mushrooms. I know adults who won't eat mushrooms. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, my kid eats really good, and she tells me all the time. She asked me to make her a drink today with milk, and I ran out of cashew milk that I usually make. That recipe is on my page, but I can always repost it. So I like just kind of lazy grabbed the creamer that I had in there that's like a coffee creamer and added water to it and a little bit of a specific type of protein that doesn't have any vitamins added. And my daughter drank some of it and she was like, "This is too sweet. You made it too sweet, Mom." I'm like, I can't even imagine if my child drank soda, like a name brand popular soda. She probably would be like, don't even know how to handle this, how to process this. So what we usually drink in my house, because I try to stay away from too much processed sugar. I'm not saying I never have it, but I try not to drink all my calories. That gets people in a lot of trouble with trying to maintain a certain calorie level. We usually drink Waterloo. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Waterloo. I came across this brand a couple years ago when I was doing category management. And what shocked me about this brand, I know you guys, probably lots of you drink LaCroix or LaCroix, whatever you call it. Their flavors are kind of iffy to me. And I feel like LaCroix goes flat a lot. And when I first drank one of these and left it sitting on my desk at work, I came back hours later and it still had like bubbles. It still had carbonation. I was like, how has this been sitting out for hours and it still has carbonation? Wow. So all that's in it is purified carbonated water and flavors. I can't tell you where the flavors come from. I have a few friends who have a lot of allergies and can't have certain even natural type of flavors. So you'd have, if that's an issue for you, you have to talk to the company about it and find out what they are. But this is one of their seasonal ones. It's cranberry. And the only place I know that's carrying this right now is Target. They also have some like apple spice flavor. Don't drink that. That is nasty. That's my personal preference, like my personal opinion. But like when I think apple, I think sweet, and unsweetened apple and cinnamon it just did not hit the spot for me. So they have a lot of really good flavors, but that's one that you can't get all the time. It's actually one of my favorites. Some other stuff that we got this week at, I don't know if this was at Whole Foods or Wegmans. I can't remember because I mix them up. But Kite Hill has this this pumpkin pie cream cheese. Once again, if you guys figure out how to switch the mirror thing on Facebook or Instagram, let me know. I'm just going to be honest, I've been too lazy to look and figure out if there's a way to do it. There might not be anyway. But the ingredients in this is vegan. It's gluten-free. Usually Kite Hill cream cheese I like. It's a little, I'd say, oily sometimes. But overall, I like it better than the older stuff, like tofu stuff that just doesn't really, I don't know, the texture is not right for me. So the diet reminds me more of like the old style, like Philly cream cheeses that were like the spreadable kind of stuff. So this one is an almond milk base, pumpkin sugar salt, mushroom extract for freshness. I don't know what that is. Xanthan guar gum, enzymes, lactic acid cultures, which that comes from vegetables. That can come, like when you make sauerkraut and things like that, that's where lactic acid comes from, the vegetables. This is, even for their cream cheese, is a little bit, I don't know how to say it any other way, it's soft. It's like they took pumpkin pie mix and mixed it with their cream cheese and it's just more fluffy than it normally would be, but it does taste more like pumpkin pie. It's not pumpkin spice. It's not got that spicy flavor. I really actually like this. And I got some plain bagels to put it on that are gluten-free and vegan, which is hard to find a gluten-free vegan bagel that's not really dense. But I discovered this brand a couple years ago, Odo's. This is their everything bagel. It's more flat, like a flat bagel. That doesn't really bother me. I mean, who eats all that spongy bagel anyway? This one, obviously, I wouldn't eat with pumpkin pie cream cheese, but I have a plain one in the fridge, too. It's just, it's the package, it's almost gone. At Whole Foods, I also picked up their brand of this new pasta. It's gluten-free penne with, it says vegetable pasta. And the ingredients in this, it's got cauliflower in it, and it's really interesting. Red lentil flour, green pea flour, and cauliflower. That's it. There's no rice in it. There's no corn in it. Like, actually, that really surprises me because usually you kind of need one of those to keep the texture pretty good. So the texture of this was a little more, I hate to say this, but almost a little bit like pasty, but not in a bad way. I don't know. You got to try it and decide if you like it for yourself. But I liked it. Personally, I go for the older styles of gluten-free pasta, like the Tinkyata. They have a really good texture to them with brown rice. I'm not a big corn fan. I have friends who really like the corn pastas. I don't love them. So I'll probably get either Tinkyata or another brand of fettuccine because, as I posted my recipe, if you didn't look, you need to go look. If you can find this anywhere, white acorn squash, aka potato squash. It's like a ghost squash, isn't it? Look at it. Look at it. This is straight up like just a white acorn. And I've tried that recipe with the Alfredo using regular acorn squash, and the difference is this is much milder. This really doesn't overpower the dish, whereas regular acorn squash is more sweet, and it's got that, I don't even know how to explain it, like that carotenoid, like that orange taste to it, like you get in pumpkin and carrots and all of that stuff. This doesn't have that. I don't know how, like, this is just the variety. I don't know a lot about this variety. I can look it up. The only place I know to get it right now in Buffalo is at the Co-op. So if you see it anywhere else, let me know. Sometimes Wegmans and Whole Foods get wild and start picking up new stuff, but this is usually a couple of weeks and then it's gone. So I usually grab at least 3 of them at a time, keep them in storage out of the light in a cool area. And if you read my recipe, you literally just cut it in half, roast it. You can peel the peel off after it's roasted, really easy. And then you put it in your blender with the other ingredients and make Alfredo. And my friends who have tried it, my family, they've all said it's really good. I kind of have a little bit of a leg up on some people. First of all, I'm Sicilian Italian. Second of all, I worked for an Italian Sicilian restaurant for 3.5 years. I was like a front-end manager, you could say. So I got to see in the kitchen how they made their recipe. So I know how traditional Alfredo would be made. I don't eat that anymore, but you know, it's traditional Alfredo is like eggs, heavy cream, butter, oil, lots of fat. So you can make it vegan and you can make it good. You got to add your spices and add all your stuff. But the great thing about vegan and gluten-free, if you eat this, is like you're not going to feel like your stomach hates you afterwards. Usually. Most people are like, this is spot on. The last thing I'll share is a sample that came into my job. Not specifically to me, but they were giving it away. So I grabbed it. It's this Buddha butter. I've seen this at different co-ops. I don't know if Whole Foods is carrying this. Let's see where it's made. Washington. It's a product of Washington State. But it's organic, vegan, no wax, no fragrance. It's just shea butter, cocoa butter, coconut oil, olive oil, and jojoba oil. And one cool thing about this, if you guys don't know already, is that with body care, people come in and ask this a lot, and supplements, not a lot of it is organic because every single ingredient that goes into an organic body care or supplement product has to undergo its own organic certification before it gets put into the product. And there's different levels of organic certification. I'll have to post a thing about that, but for like packaged products, there's organic, which I forget what percent, I want to say 95 or 97%, maybe even a little more. There's an allowance because some things can't be certified organic, like water. What is a water organic certification? I don't think that exists yet. Salt can't be certified organic right now. They're starting to create other processes for organic certification, things that come from the ocean, like kelp. I was like, how do you have organic kelp? How do you certify the ocean organic? But I guess they have nets where they section it off. That's an interesting topic. Maybe sometime I'll post more about it. My dog is trying to bury something right now, so I'm gonna grab his bowl in a minute and put this cream cheese away anyway. But yeah, so you don't see a lot of certified organic body care or supplements because of that. There's other levels like made with X% organic ingredients, or things will say made with organic ingredient and then just list in the ingredients which was organic. So you kind of have to be careful, because just because something's made with organic ingredients, that's not going to have the USDA organic certification. And y'all can debate all you want. I don't get into this debate with people, but it gets brought up with me where they'll be like, oh, organic, and all these conspiracy theories about organic. Y'all can believe what you want. All I'm saying is organic is a process for certification. Yes, it does require a certain amount of years of growing something organic. You have to get certified. You have to pay a certain amount to get into that. And some people debate that things really stay organic, or they get cross-contaminated. I mean, nothing is perfect, obviously. I think that this is the highest quality certification we have available right now. So just because sometimes things happen where it's not perfect doesn't mean that the whole system's bunk. It doesn't mean just like, oh, organic's BS. No, yeah, y'all, come on. Like, I'll do another video about it sometime, but me and conspiracy theories are not best friends. I don't love it. And I've had a conversation with my therapist about this before, but it's very bad for your brain. It's negatively stimulating a part of your brain that we don't need to stimulate. So, you know, if y'all want to go off on your conspiracy theories about anything, that's on you, but I don't participate. I really don't participate in that. So, we can talk more, and I can post more about that stuff in the future. The other kind of certifications that I'm aware of, there's like the cruelty-free thing here for PETA, or not necessarily PETA. PETA has its own certification thing, like PETA approved. But cruelty-free doesn't necessarily also mean vegan. And you will see stuff, there is a vegan certification where you'll see that like V with a circle on it. They do have to pay for that, as far as I know, but you pay to go through the third-party certification to make sure your ingredients are actually vegan. So that's why sometimes you'll see stuff that looks like it's vegan, or it'll say plant-based, but it doesn't have that vegan V on it. Sometimes things, as I said, I think in another video, sometimes things will say plant-based, and it's kind of an irritation of mine, because there's companies that are using plant-based but then put things like eggs in it. And I'm like, plant-based doesn't necessarily mean vegan. It's a good start, but I always double check the ingredients, because plant-based at this point is not a certification. It's just a merchandising term, just like natural. Natural does not have any definition. It's just a term used by companies. You could say natural, like I picked up some manure out back. It was natural. Doesn't mean I want to eat it. So, you know, do your homework and do the best you can with the food that you pick out. Nobody's perfect. People make mistakes. Stuff happens. Formulas change. But we're all trying to do the best we can with what we have. My dogs are chewing now, and I think they're being quiet, but I am going to put my cream cheese back in the fridge. Okay, I'm going to try not to ramble too much, but this was my last conversation with my therapist, and I think I mentioned this before, but I'm still not in EMDR yet with her, but we're talking about getting really close to doing it. I think I'm going to ask her to delay it until after the holidays, because the holidays are rough for everyone. They're a very trying time, triggering in a lot of ways, so January is probably going to be better for me. But right now my sessions are like every 1 to 2 weeks, and life has been mostly calm. It has its moments. I had some triggering thing happen last night, and this is where it all ties in with what I had talked to my therapist about, and even this particular situation, and like just someone trying to impose themselves on my life, and me setting a boundary of, no, this is not happening, and I've already specifically talked, to this person and made it very clear, but they're not accepting that. So this is something that, as someone with CPTSD, someone with religious trauma, like, we're not really always told that we can have an opinion or we can say no. If you come from that type of very conservative religious environment, the message I got from that was, you need to listen, you need to do these things to be good, you need to basically earn your way into the next level of life, basically, as they would say, like, their heaven, like, you need to earn your way through good deeds, and that's still in my head at times. I find that narrative still in the back of my head, where I feel like I'm not doing enough, or like I feel that need to people please because I'm not trying hard enough, I'm not doing the good thing, I'm not in relationships, like I'm not earning love. And it's like, why do we have to earn love? Why can't it just be something that we care about each other, and it's not a game? But this is a hard thing with CPTSD, with I'm not gonna lie, I probably talked a little bit about this, and I can talk about it more down the line, but we all know someone in our lives who has narcissistic traits. I'm not saying they have narcissistic personality disorder, that's a whole diagnosable thing, but there's a lot of very selfish narcissistic behaviors that we get into in toxic family systems. And a lot of that is you don't get to have your own opinion. You're supposed to do things for the family. You're supposed to make them look good. Like, this is why parents get upset with some of us, because we're not reflecting on them well. And that's kind of narcissistic. Sorry, my dog is very loud right now. He's enjoying a Nylabone. Yeah, that's where the people-pleasing behavior comes in. Like, we want to be accepted. Our social network, which for some people, their religious group is their social network. They want to fit in. Your family is part of your social network that you're born into, and there's obviously like a biological need to want to be accepted and fit in, because if you don't fit in, like in the animal kingdom, you're going to be discarded, and then you're more at risk. So the good thing is, that I've learned going through therapy, is as you get older, as I've said before, we get to choose our new social network. We get to choose our friends. And I don't just mean the internet and Facebook and Instagram. All that's great. And I do post a lot on here. And, we could get into this debate of all the stuff with the internet. I know Dr. Romney, who specializes in narcissistic personality disorder and traits, has said that the internet's perpetuating a lot of narcissistic traits. But the question is, why are we doing what we're doing? Are we doing it for the approval of others, or are we doing it to help others and to help to help ourselves? I don't think that's selfish to help yourself, to be able to speak your truth, to be able to live your life and be the person that you want to be. When you've lived in conservative religion, when you've lived in narcissistic, toxic family systems, you don't get to express yourself. No one wants you to speak your truth, because it's going to reflect poorly on other people. It's this idea that we have to have this, even on the internet, this is where this narcissistic idea comes in, like that this fake like life, like, and as I've said before, I think a lot of it goes back to the culture of the 50s and the 40s and fitting in and becoming culturally homogenous and all of that, but we're moving away, and there's always been subsets of people, but I feel like it's becoming so much more diverse. Even over the last few years, when we talk about things like LGBTQ people, here in Buffalo, I don't know how it is everywhere else, and especially like with my job being very LGBTQ friendly, I know lots of people who are LGBTQ that come into my job that I feel like when I was younger, like never would have felt safe to go into a retail location or anywhere in public. So I'm really happy that we're able to see that people are able to feel comfortable and safe and seen. So being able to speak your truth is important, and this is where boundaries come in, and this is where saying no, like, it's a weird thing for me because, as I've stated before, good Lord, these dogs are loud. Hey, can you simmer down a little bit? Simmer down now? So in my family, after the age of 8, I grew up with one parent. And it's complicated. It was a stressful, trying situation. You have one person trying to do their best and support everyone who's also trying to deal with their own stuff, and coming out of that culture of having, being born in the 50s and that generation and trying to, push the bounds of that too. So yeah, it was a lot of, it's weird because there's two sides to it. Like, my father is very, what's the word I want to say? Very rebellious in some ways. He's in his mid to late 60s now, and in his hometown, like, kind of the joke and around where he works, like, people call him the wizard because he's got long white hair. And when he was younger, there's these stories, these jokes about his father, my grandfather, wanting him to cut his hair. And even like back in, the 70s and the 80s, my dad having to either cut his hair, or when he was younger, I'm gonna have to take this phone away from this dog, having to wear a wig because you couldn't get a job as a man, with long hair. It wasn't acceptable. Let me see if I can get this. You're being so loud. Why don't you just come right around a little bit, huh? This one won't get in trouble. The other one's not ready to come out yet. And they'll cause a ruckus. So, yeah. So, in that way, my own parent has gotten to the age where he's established, he has his business. He's like, this is me. I don't like cutting my hair. I don't like it. When he was in high school, in his senior picture, his hair is like down to here. And my grandfather was quite upset because my grandfather wanted my dad to cut his hair, like, short. My dad did get a haircut because his hair was like down to here, when he was 18. So he cut about half of it off. But, that idea of like bending the rules, like, I grew up in that too, and it's a tricky thing, like that, I'd say passive aggressiveness that we learn when we're not allowed to really explicitly say no, and the people-pleasing behaviors. So it's taken me a long time to get away from that, and this is where social media has helped me because I'm able to express myself more as my authentic self. Whereas I used to have more of a split of almost to the point of it being embarrassing when I would go out in public and see someone from my job, like when I worked in a restaurant, and they're used to seeing me a certain way, like dressed in a uniform and looking very sterile, taking out my jewelry, like not wearing any of that because It's very strange, but I worked in a restaurant in near Detroit. And the funny thing is there's a lot of people there that are ethnic that have a nose ring. And they actually ended up surveying people in the area at one point and just asking them what they felt comfortable with. And everyone's like, we don't care if you have a nose ring. Like, we seriously don't care. So then they started letting us have a nostril piercing, but it's funny how we used to have to like flip stuff up and wear retainers. And I understand that some of it's about food safety and, you know, the concern that something's going to fall out. And I get that. You can get stuff that's not going to fall out though. But yeah, so there was a lot of like separation in people's lives to that point of like with my father having to work in a restaurant himself and wear a wig that just looked ridiculous. It didn't look like his hair. So now as an adult, like he's like, I'm not cutting my hair anymore. And you can tell the difference between states up here, like, you know, the more northern area of New York, which a lot of people aren't aware. Buffalo is more over to almost the Michigan, Ohio, you know, Pennsylvania side, the Great Lakes side versus, you know, the other side is New York State. It's about 6 hours away. I didn't realize that before I lived here either, but Buffalo it's interesting. It's an interesting town. But Virginia, you know, my dad still gets looks and questions about his hair but I think most people like it. So I've had to learn to set boundaries in a clear manner with people and not kind of use that passive aggressive type of indirect, we could say, manipulative behavior that I learned. And I've had to learn when to say no. So it's really not a bad thing. You get taught that like no is like it's, as I said with my daughter in school, like somehow it's disobedient, but like I said, I'm not going to teach my daughter that she can't say no. There are situations with my child where she absolutely can say no, and if someone from her school comes to me and says, your daughter's saying no to this, it's like, why? There are times that I'm going to support her. There are things that in my culture that I grew up in, I don't know about other people's families, but Sicilian Italian culture is very interesting. It's, you know how in France there's this stereotype of people kissing each other on the cheeks, but in Italian, Sicilian culture, in my family, the men kiss all the women on the lips when they greet them. Even the children, their daughters, their granddaughters, their nieces, everyone. It's a very odd thing, in my opinion, for this generation. When people were younger, that, you know, older generations, maybe they didn't think that was strange, but it's a weird thing. It crosses that line of like what is uncomfortable for a person, you know, and the idea of body autonomy and people wanting to even just hug you. I still, as an adult, have this weird thing about people hugging me a lot of times. It wasn't really a thing that I felt compelled to do, and I felt like it was obligatory as a child growing up. So it does make me kind of feel a certain way, and I'm getting over it. I have friends who I will hug, but there are days where I'm having a really rough day, and someone will ask me for a hug, and I'm like, not today. And that's okay. We're allowed to say that. And the idea that we must please everyone all the time is just ridiculous. Like, if we please everybody all the time, you can't, first of all. And then how do you please yourself? How do you have time for yourself? How do you fill up your own cup and have energy to give to yourself if you're giving it away to everyone else all the time? So one really big turning point for me was my job in category management, because I was responsible for working across 2 different locations with tons of people, department managers, administrative people, vendors. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got from my supervisor was, you can say no. you know? And it's the same as I would say with my kid. If I say no to something and my supervisor doesn't agree with it, they're going to ask me why I said no to that, and then they're going to tell me next time I would like you to do this. That's fine. But being given that gift of being able to just say, like, no, I'm not going to do that right now, or I'm not going to choose to focus on that right now, that's like a gift. Like, that was so freeing for me. And this is a conversation I had with my therapist at my last session, is like, I love it now. I love to say no. No, 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 no. I mean it. Like, not just out of a spiteful no, but just like, no, I'm not going to choose to use my time for that, because our time is finite. And this was a surprising conversation I had with my own parent recently, who, as I mentioned in one of my videos, was in the hospital recently for heart-related issues, and he's fine now, but it definitely, he said, opened up his eyes to that idea of like trying to do everything all the time, and also that like over stressing yourself to the point of, you know, emotional dysregulation. And I think like there's a lot of pressure, especially I would say, yes, for single parents or people co-parenting in separate households. That's rough. Like, that's, you, parenting is a full-time job, plus you have a job, plus you have relationships if you're in one, and you're trying to pay all the bills by yourself, and it's a lot. And then, you know, to try to juggle everything, keep your house clean, do all the things, you just, this is what I realized after splitting with my kid's dad and talking to my therapist about it, was that like, you can't do everything all the time. It's just not, you only have so many hours in the day. Sometimes you have to learn to let things go. And the hard thing growing up as an overachiever, as a gifted child, where it was always like more, have to be the top of the class, have to be perfect, have to get everyone's approval, is there's a little voice in the back of your head that is telling you things like, that's not good enough. You need to do this, you need to do that. Like, you know, for me personally, it's not a secret in my own family that my father is very particular, to the level of almost probably OCPD. And when I was a kid, it was much more intense than it is now. So I'd say I'm very proud of him that he's moved beyond that to be able to loosen up. I'm not going to say he's on the same level as everybody else, because he still has things to work on, but he's recognizing that. But yeah, there's still that reaction that I get to things like dirty dishes. It's taken me like 2 years to get over that, because when I was a kid, if you left a dirty dish in the sink, like, you're upstairs, you're going to hear someone yelling, why is there a spoon? Why is there a fork? Why is there food in the sink? And I get it. As a parent, you only have so much time. You can't be cleaning up after everybody else all the time. But also, like, as an adult, the great thing is we get to choose. What area of my house do I want to not focus so much on and stress myself out over? And there was a great video that I reposted. I hear the strangest sound right now. What are you doing, dog? There was a video segment that I reposted by Mel Robbins where she was talking to someone about her own ADHD and about cycles in our house. And they were talking about laundry and that desire we have all the time. Like, I'll say, to me, the most satisfying thing for me is to have all my laundry done, to have all my stuff hung up, to have nothing in my hamper. Like, I just know where everything is. No towels need to be done. But the thing is, like, that's not, you can't live in that every single day. It's a cycle. If you're obsessive to the point where, like, you need to do your laundry every day and have a perfect, like, you're taking away from other things in your life. So everything in your home is going to be a cycle. Like, you have your dishes, you have your laundry, you have this thing you got to do, you have that. And like, sometimes for some of us, it works better to put certain things off and do them in a big lump. Like, when I repotted my plants, like, I could repot a couple plants here and there, but it's just, for me, it's it's a lot. You got to get all the stuff out. You got to do it. You got to put it away. You got to clean up. Like, it's easier to just do it once a year. If my plants aren't dead, it's not a big deal. It's okay. And things in your home can be like that too. And we all love that moment where everything's perfectly clean and whatever, but it's hard to maintain, and especially if you have mental health struggles. So this was my thing last night with this person who is being intrusive in my life and doesn't want to take no for an answer. It's triggering, and it sucks the energy out of you, and it's like, it's hard to live in that, to be triggered, to be disassociative and get all of your stuff done. And the guilt that gets put on you because of that is awful. Like, there's so much judgment. That's what I grew up with, that people's houses, like, oh, it's disgusting, or like, they don't do this, or look at that, or, like, it's, and it's like, people are stressed out. They're tired. Your body literally has reactions, and like, I could have done my dishes last night, but the energy just got sucked out of me. It's like, just like sucked all the oxygen out of the room. And I was like, I recognize it now, and I know it's finite, but I decided last night to say no to doing dishes. Put them off. I decided that sleep was more important for me. And that's still a work in progress, but it gets better all the time. And I'll say some of my coping mechanisms in the past, I mentioned it before, Dr. Green Thumbs, some of us are familiar with, like, that can have its place for people. There are reasons that it's medicinal, it's approved for medical use, because some people really benefit from that. But the question you kind of have to ask yourself is, why are you doing it, and do you need to do it? And for me, I've realized, as I have not done it in so long, as I stated in one of my previous videos, after watching Dr. Amon's work on brain scans of people, and watching Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's a neuroscientist, that it's not in the long term an ideal thing to be doing to your brain. So it has helped me get through times in my life that were, I could honestly say, truly horrid. It's helped me with CPTSD and sleep. As I mentioned in another video, it's really hard. But I'm at a point in my life where I'm more balanced, so I'm trying to function and to cope without going back to that as my default coping mechanism. There may be a time in my life where things get crazy again and I feel the need to do that, but I'm really just trying to work on self-regulation, to work on walking through things. I think that some of those coping mechanisms that we have really just put things on the back burner, which can have its time and its place. If we're having anxiety attacks, if we're freaking out, we're having CPTSD, nightmares, like, I'm not saying it's right for everybody. Some people have a genetic predisposition to psychosis or schizophrenia. They don't need to be doing some of these things. But you got to do your research and know your body and talk to your doctor and know what's right for you. So right now I'm choosing to work through things in my own way. But setting boundaries and saying no has been a gift for myself, because I realized throughout my life that a lot of the situations that I've gotten in, especially relationships where I've ended up feeling resentful, it's because I people pleased and wanted to say yes to everything in order to make other people happy. But over the long term, it just ended up causing me to be resentful and feel like I did everything by myself and no one cared about how I felt. No one cared when I was sick, and no one cared, So it's like, you have to really know what's important in your life and what you can manage. And for me, I don't know, CPTSD and ADHD have a lot of similarities. It's hard to focus sometimes. And another tool that I received while I was working in category management and dealing with a lot of people, I can't remember the name of the sheet, but it was this big long sheet, and it kind of broke everything up into categories. So I had my days of the week in one section with like hours, so I could schedule meetings, whatever I needed to do, you know. At the bottom of the sheet, it had like less than 10 people that I deal with directly, and notes I had for each of those people, so I could schedule a meeting, and then I could also talk to them about the things that I wanted to talk to them about, and be very efficient in that, because it's just hard to remember all these things when you're dealing with like 20, 30. I mean, I'm telling you guys, when I did category management, I don't miss this, but I would, no joke, I'd get 100 emails a day, because I was responsible for onboarding new products and trying new products, and everyone's trying to get their product in. And if you say, you can't possibly in a job like that say yes to everybody. Not everything's profitable. Not everything's going to be popular. Not everything is a good fit. You have to be able to say no. And I would get people, you know, the joke on Seinfeld about the pop-in, like Elaine and Jerry are talking about people dropping by their apartment and the pop-in, and we don't like the pop-in. And that was my thing, is I would have vendor reps who are nice. It's their job. They're trying to share products with me, but I have a limited amount of time. So they would try to pop into the store. No joke. Some days there'd be 4 of them a day. And it's hard, because when you're thinking of that individual interaction with that person, you don't want to waste their time or their effort for coming up to see you or being in your area. But you also have to recognize that, like, they didn't talk to you in advance about coming in. They're just coming in and taking your time without having an agenda. They don't know what you have or working on that is your deadline. And if you take 20 minutes a day to talk to each of these 4 people, you're spending an hour and a half or so, sometimes up to 2 hours, just talking to people, and it may not be productive time. So learning to manage your time, to delegate, to organize all the things that you need to do is important, because if you want to be efficient and get your job done and be good at it, you gotta be organized. And sometimes saying no is the answer. Like, so I got to the point when people would come to my job and ask for me, I got a business card, and I would have someone, if they'd come up, I'd say, here's my business card. You can give it to them, have them email me, and I'll get back to them. And if I'm interested in the products that they pitch to me, then I will set up a time to talk to this person, and we'll discuss the products I'm interested in. But you cannot possibly talk to every person in a job like that. You don't have the time for it when you have other duties that you have to do. This. Your whole job is not talking to people. And life is like that too. Like, you have to organize your time. You have to delegate things that you need to do. You have lots of people in your life. You cannot possibly, you have 7 days in a week. You know, you have a partner, you have kids, you have friends. Do you have more than 5 friends? Then you're not going to be able to hang out with one of them every single day. You know, you have to be conscious about the fact that you want to spend time with people and interact with them, but you cannot possibly interact with every single person or go do something with every single person every single day. So being able to say no respectfully and set boundaries about your time and what you need to get done is important, because otherwise you're going to burn yourself out. It happens to people all the time. So that was the greatest gift, as I said, in my old position. It actually helped me to organize my life better. And that sheet that I had, I'll have to see if I can find something similar to it. But, you know, it's basically splitting up like your short-term things that you need to do, your long-term things that you need to do, the categories of things that you need to do. I had a list where I would have like top 5 goals for the week. And you can have more than that, but the 5 at the top of the list are the things that absolutely must get done. So this, as I talked about in another video, sometimes you have a lot of things you want to do in a day, but this is not all going to happen. So prioritizing, like, okay, eating. A lot of people think eating is optional. It's not optional. If you don't eat, your brain it's not going to function well. You're going to get less done. And people think eating and sleep are things that they can cut. Like, you're not winning in that department, to not sleep and to not eat. Those are two. Every time someone tells me that they're not feeling good or their life is going bad or they're mentally having a hard time, those are the first things I say. No, they're not the fix all to everything, but they're like the foundation of your house. If you're not eating and you're not sleeping, why do you go exercise? Why do you go take vitamins? All these things are not as big as the foundation of the house that you need to be taken care of. So there's a lot of directions I can go in this. As I said, with my job and the organizing and learning to prioritize, and I don't know how to explain it, but to me, visually, having something visual is kind of like, I don't know if my executive function and working memory is the same as everybody else's, where they can hold things in their mind and organize it really well. I've always had to write things down on paper and keep a notebook, because otherwise it would kind of get obsessive thoughts in my mind of like, I got to do this, I got to do that, or this thing's going on, or and like if I don't keep thinking about it, I'm going to lose it. So I would write it on like paper back in the day, but now it's like we have phones. The problem with phones is you're not always on your phone. It's not always available. So there are some lists I have on my phone, like, you know, my bills that I need to pay. I've got whatever, 10 bills or whatever, and I write the date that I paid each bill. I don't have them on automatic payments. I don't make enough money to do that. I mean, I do have a schedule that I've planned them out, but you have to have that information somewhere to keep yourself in check. I have a hard time, though, with things like a shopping list, keeping it on my phone. So one thing that I have learned, and this is when I was learning about ADHD and executive function and working memory and some tips that people had for it, finding a system that works for you. I got a whiteboard for my fridge years ago. I got it when I lived with my kid's dad. It helped a little bit with certain things that we were doing. I found more benefit from it than he did. But I keep whiteboards on my fridge, and my kitchen is a mess, but I'm gonna try to see. There's my fridge. Do you guys see that? There's a big whiteboard. Can you see that? Oh, my head's in the way. There's a big whiteboard. There's another smaller whiteboard. The big whiteboard I have cut in half, so I have things I'd like to do within the next week. On the bottom half of it, I have long-term things I'd like to do. On the right board, the smaller board, I have shopping lists. So whenever I run out of something or think of something I need to buy, I have a dry erase. These are dry erase boards. I write it on my board with my dry erase marker, because like I said, my phone's not always on me. I'm not always gonna pull it out and remember and type it in there. And I'm just, for me, like writing, I don't know, it just works better. So I write my shopping list on the board. And then before I leave the house, this is the important part, you have to remember to take a picture of the list. But this helps to keep me organized and efficient as a parent with a kid and working full time and everything else I have to deal with. If I ever have downtime and I'm like, I feel like I should be doing something and I'm not, I'll look at my board and I'll be like, what are my long-term goals that I haven't done yet? But in the same vein, there are times when you just got to say no. Like, it's there. It's on the board. I know it's there. It's going to get done at some point, but today it doesn't have to happen. Because sometimes you just need to rest. You mentally need a break. You physically need a break. And sometimes that's the hardest thing for some of us to do. And I think it takes practice. You know, when your family or your friends are asking a lot from you, if you have the extra energy to give, great. If you don't, then tell them, set a boundary and say, like, I don't want to be in this position of doing X thing. You know, I just had a conversation the other day with someone where we were talking and they were relaying a message to me from someone else, and I set a boundary with them and I said, I don't want to talk through you. I would like to talk directly with the person. So sometimes that may feel disrespectful to a person, or that might hurt their feelings because they feel like you're not having faith in their abilities. But it's not meant to put another person down. It's meant to make it as easy as it can for you to get what you need to get done, and without, the circle of playing, like in this instant, the circle of playing a telephone game. So like I said, it's practice, and a lot of this kind of stuff with boundaries I've learned through therapy. I've learned from watching Anna and Mitchell on We Are Recovery, their series on codependency and boundaries setting with people who have been working programs for addiction, and being a family member or a friend of people who are in those type of situations. And the mistake that we make sometimes in life, as they would both say, is that people try to use a boundary as a way to control other people, like an ultimatum type of thing. And the thing is, like, it doesn't really work like that. Like, a boundary is meant to be your choice to their choice. So if you do this, I'm going to choose to do that. It's not meant to be hurtful to the other person. It's meant to protect yourself and your own energy. So you have to be clear in knowing what you need. You have to be honest with other people, which is hard sometimes. It creates a hard situation because you feel like you're not pleasing the other person sometimes, but sometimes that's what it takes, because if you say yes to everything, you're never going to have time for yourself. And setting ultimatums is like, if you don't stick with it, as I've learned with people, they learn that what you say holds no weight. So if you say, if you do this, I'm going to leave, or if you do that, I'm going to do this, and you don't do it, then they learn that they can do whatever they want, because you're just going to stick around and deal with it. And that creates a lot of frustration in friendships and families and relationships that and can really make you feel disrespected, that another person, you say that you don't like something or something bothers you, and they continue to keep repeating the behavior. And it's like, the hard thing is accepting your own part in that. If I tell someone I don't like something and they continue to do it again and again and again, and I'm like, I just stick around, they're like, why should I stop? You're not going anywhere. This was an eye-opener for me in one of my longest relationships I've ever had. At the end of it, the other person was upset because they wanted to stay in a relationship and I didn't. And the question I asked them was, why do you even want to be with me? And their answer to me was, because it's comfortable. This is where I realized I set myself up for that by always thinking about other people ahead of myself, to the point where they thought that was okay. That's what I wanted to do. So you can't even really be mad at the other people sometimes, because you have set up a pattern of behavior for them where they don't see what the problem is anymore. You just do it. I like this, and you do it, and what's the problem? But the problem is, like, just because they're comfortable doesn't mean you're comfortable or happy. So conflict is a hard thing, but conflict is a part of life, and we have to just accept that. And it can be scary if you've grown up in an environment where you're not allowed to, you feel like you speak your own wants and needs, or you're not allowed to say anything that's contrary to someone else. But it's like, this is where they say, like, inner child work happens, and just it's weird. Like, my therapist said to me once, when I was talking about my own house and the state that I felt it was in after I moved in my mental health, she said, you don't live with your parent anymore. Like, this is your house. Your parent's not here. And it's so weird because in our brain, like, we carry that around, that other people are living with us and in our lives and conscious of what's going on. And it's like, but they're not. Like, it's just us. This is our house and our environment and our family. And it's like, there's a point where you can tell yourself that, like, okay, like, we can calm down now. Like, we can make our own rules for our house. We can let go of those voices in the back of our head that are like, you didn't do it right, it's not good enough, or, you know, like, it needs to be done this way. Like, stop. Just tell that voice no. You know, it's and it's not like you're gonna say it one time and it's just gonna go away. It's not like that little voice, that inner narrative in the back of your head is just, you're gonna say no and it's gonna be like, oh, okay. It's a learned behavior. You have to learn yourself out of that behavior. So I feel like there's a lot more I could say in this regard, but I probably should actually do my dishes tonight and eat something and get some sleep. So there's a lot more topics that I do want to talk about in the future. I'm kind of just doing them when I have the energy for them. That's why I said before, I'm not really going to tie myself down to, like, I'm going to do X amount of lives or whatever. Like, I got a lot going on. It's about to hit the holidays. I'm not making any money or doing this for anything like that. So it's just for fun and hopefully to help other people. And I like talking. I come from a family of big talkers, and that's another video, but I think that there's a subset of every group of society where there's, like, the storytellers. Some people are just really good at retaining information and spitting it back out. And this probably goes back to the days when we didn't have as many written forms of, you know, communication and ways to store information, but I feel like that still persists in society, and this is probably where things like social media and celebrities and all that comes from. It's just like, some of us are just the storytellers, and it's fun. So I think that's it for the live for the day. Someone made a comment. Boundaries are very uncomfortable to do at first, but without boundaries, you get in more uncomfortable situations. It's true. After getting over the uncomfortableness of stating or starting boundaries, they feel great to have. Yeah, like, it's there to keep yourself safe. And I think for me, I've been in situations where I kind of had this unrealistic hope that people would just magically change, or this idea that people are suddenly going to care about how you feel about stuff without you having to say it. It's like, that's not really real life. And even in our intimate relationships, if we don't set boundaries, like I said, you're setting yourself up for failure, because the other person, some people really don't see what the problem is. Like, this is how we've always done it. You've always done all my laundry and took care of paying all the bills and did this and this and that, and I came home and played video games all day, and what's the problem? Why is it suddenly a problem? Did you set yourself up for it? I have, and I'm not doing it anymore. Like, it might seem extreme, but, like, when I get into a relationship, when I have a friendship, I try to be very clear about this and this and that, and I will do this and I won't do that, and this is what I like, and, like, it's like it needs to be a mutual agreement and not all one-sided all the time. So don't yes yourself into misery, because you can do that. Trust me. One of my coping skills is working. I love to work because I love the sense of accomplishment and the accolades and, the positive attention that can bring, but you also have to set limits with that too. And there's I think this is another video we can get into where I talk about, like, my experience in moving up and through, my work career, but you sometimes have to figure out what is right for you at a certain time in your life. So for example, when I did category management, that was super exciting for me. Once I had a kid, that was super draining for me. And I did not want to go through 100 emails a day when I also had a child at home that I was nursing and pumping and doing all that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go on vacation for a week and have 1,000 emails. That is not an exaggeration. I went on vacation once and had 1,000 emails. Sometimes there's a point in your life that is for challenge and growth and learning. And sometimes there's a point in your life that is for rest and survival. You got to figure out what it is, and you have to balance it and walk through it and, just figure it out what you need. But sometimes in our work careers, we can feel obligated to do things for other people. But I feel like that can be a trap. We spend a lot of hours at our job, probably usually more than we spend with our own families often. And if it becomes a place that's super stressful, that's going to bleed into everything else in your life. And I know not everyone else can have the job that they want at the time they want. That's another thing we can talk about. But I've been to the extremes of it. I've been to the point where my job has been my safe space and the only thing that kept me going. And I've been to the point where I literally sat in my car and cried every day before I went to a job. That's not a good thing. And you have to pay your bills, but you can't live in that forever because, like I said, it's gonna bleed into the rest of your life and it is not gonna be good. Learn when to say no, learn when to say yes, set your boundaries, say yes to you. What do you want? Because otherwise, if you spend your whole life trying to please everybody else, you're not even going to know who you are anymore. So, I think that was all the comments and questions. Thank you for everyone for watching. And if you have more questions or ideas for things that you want me to talk about, let me know. Have a good night.